Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the special meeting of the Police and Fire Commission on July 6, 2021. And we have a full agenda, and it looks like we have a full quorum and everybody on the commission is here. So I'd like to call the meeting to order. First order of business is approval of the minutes. And there's actually two sets of minutes. One is from June 16th and one is from June 23rd. We've been having a fair amount of meetings trying to work through the process, so this is common that we're actually approving both of those. Did all the commission members have a chance to review those, and are there any comments or concerns? Tom, yes?
So one thought on, and I'm looking at the pre-read packet that was online on page 8 of the packet. At the bottom where it identified, and it was kind of reflecting the survey results. And I wonder if there's a way to attach, and then it'll be a huge document, but just for kind of the record, attach the survey results to the minutes, if that's possible, and if people think that's helpful. And then I thought for personal characteristics universal with all 3 survey results. Just to clarify, Sarah, are the 3, when you talk about 3 survey results, is it paper, the employees of the city, and then the general public? Is that the 3 categories?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
And then I think just based on as I kind of looked back at them, I think it'd be helpful to put all these characteristics and core values and things in order of what they were, again, just for the record, given the importance of them. So I think that'd be helpful just to reflect in the minutes that some of these were, we identified the top 3 or top 4 characteristics, but I think it'd be helpful to rank them too in the minutes. And that's my proposal.
So would it be sufficient if we actually included that survey in there? Because then that would actually just include all of those and that would be the reference point?
Yep, that makes sense.
And survey results without comments, correct? Just the trends? Or did you want to include the entire survey result?
Good point. Yeah, I think without the comments, with the survey statistics, I think would be appropriate.
All right, thanks, Tom. Any other comments on the meeting minutes for the 16th and the 23rd? Yes, Rosa? We can't hear you, Rosa. I think you might be on mute.
Yeah, regarding the survey, I was just thinking that maybe we should take those surveys and analyze it and make a formal report of the comments and the surveys I meant. And I thought about that after I read some of the comments that people thought that this survey was we were doing it just to show that we are requiring input from the community, but we're not going to do anything with them. So I don't know if that's something we could do in addition to what Tom proposed, or we could just do that and then have a formal report on the survey and the results and share that with the public and the police department and the mayor and the city council.
Other commission members have thoughts on that? I think that what we had discussed at the previous meeting was to take the survey results and the accumulated survey results and make those available online. And then if anybody did want the entire sort of breadth of information that we collected, including all the comments, they could actually make a request of the PFC for that information. Since we would make that available online, would that be sufficient, Rosa, from what you're talking about, or is there something more specific? No?
I think it should be something more specific, and I'm willing to work on that. It's just that where we could analyze the survey, not just put it out there like some people in the comments were saying, this is just, some people complain about the survey, not who put it together. We're just going to get the information but not do anything with it. And maybe put it in a way that is more palatable for people to digest. And so it doesn't we could use it as a reference without having to go and, I mean, there are ways to do that without having to go read the whole list of things, and they're not, we could connect things, in the survey, we don't have to be redundant, because some people have the same comments, so. I mean, you're right, we agree to do that, and I agree we can do that. Anyone who wants to see every comment could go back and look at that, but I thought we could use it in a more formal way and more useful way, in my opinion.
Yeah, to that end, I guess, with the goal, I guess what you're driving at here is to demonstrate how we're actually taking that input and putting that into action in regards to questions that we're generating for the applicants and things like that.
For the applicants, and then for our new chief, also to look at that and use it in order to implement some of that, or take that into account into what he does once he becomes the chief in the department.
Not necessarily for the hiring process. You're saying just to resolve some of the comments and some of the views that we saw. Is that what you're?
Well, not necessarily, because we have access to all the information there, so we could use it for the hire, we have to, I mean, we ask for input for the community, so we need to take that into account in a hiring process. But I'm just saying a formal report that is not just the paper surveys and anyone, it's a formal report regarding what we collected from the community, what they want to do, what they said, and hand that report to the new chief, to the mayor, so they have it in a way that is more accessible to read the information.
Is that listed in the, like the graphs that can we put those up on the board and see if that's
Yeah.
something more? I guess I'm having a hard time just visualizing what you're speaking about.
So,
It seems to me, potentially anyways, Rosa, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think that maybe Rosa's really driving at the comments section.
Oh,
Because I do think that, the aggregate of the numbers, I guess, is relatively straightforward. But that somehow going through those, combing through those comments, coming up with the common themes, and then, sort of
Okay.
formalizing that somehow for the future chief. And then I guess what I would like to see, if we're going to do that, and we've talked about doing this anyways, which is really take those themes and apply that to some questions as a part of the process.
I like it. That makes sense. Yes, I agree. If we can find a way to do that.
So I fear putting our words into the comments. I mean, the comments are what they are. Some are helpful, some are not appropriate, some are helpful. I don't know if we can add value to a report, and frankly, the next chief and anyone who wants it can get it from the city, to see all the comments in their raw form, which I think is how we've used them and will continue to use them, I think. And I think that's probably sufficient, along with these summaries that kind of give the statistics as to which characteristics and qualities are important. I guess, one, I'm thinking of our time, and then two, again, the subjective addition of our thoughts into a report like that, I fear will get difficult, and I'm not sure if that adds a whole lot of value.
Well, I happen to disagree. I think it's not that we're gonna put our opinion into the survey, we're just going to analyze the survey. I mean, what's the purpose of doing a survey if we're not gonna maximize the use of it? That's how I see it. And it is not just something we do one time and then we just toss it aside. And someone who wants to see it can request it. I think a formal report on what people said doesn't mean that we're gonna interject our opinion into it. This is what was said, and we put it in a format that it makes it more accessible to anybody that wants to see it, but I'm trying to see if we can do it in a more formal way. Because some people are gonna see that, well, okay, they did the survey, let's toss it aside. If you wanna see it, come and see it. And I wanna give it the value that it should have, by formalize the survey in a way that it's, and I said a report because, it's a document, it's part of the document that we should have in my opinion, from this process. So it doesn't take, I mean, I don't, we could just, and I said, I could put it together, bring it to the group, you guys can read it and see if it's something acceptable. My fear is that already in the comments, people are gonna see that we're not giving this survey the value. And my other question, Sarah, you probably know more than I do about that. People do surveys all the time. And then what do you do with that information? This is not gonna be just for us to, go through it, put it aside, and hire a new chief and forget about it.
Yeah, I guess respectfully, I would say that I don't feel that we did that. I think that even in the last meeting, we discussed themes that happened throughout those comments. And we took those and we actually changed some of the ranking behaviors and made sure and gave more emphasis to things like community engagement as an example. So I don't think that we're doing that across the board. I think that we're using that input and we're going to continue to develop questions and have that impact the process.
That's fine, and doesn't have to be a complicated thing. So if people don't want to do it, we don't have to do it. My opinion is that we should take that information and put it together in a way that it's more useful, not necessarily for us right now, but in the long term, So.
I do envision like an executive summary. I think, Rosa, that's kind of what you're talking about. And then putting it in there, we can actually document what we've done with the results, such as changing some of the benchmarks on the application scoring criteria, our interview questions. It's something for us to look back on. So when we recruit again, we can go back to the survey and see, okay, here's the comments we got then. Here's what we did with it and how it changed the process. I've seen those types of summary reports on surveys before, or statistics. It just does help provide better background as to the information and what we do with it. So if there's anything I can do to help, I would be more than happy to help put something like that together without inserting our own narrative or anything like that.
Yeah, and I guess, to Tom's point, I think, and, speaking for you here, but I think that there is some truth in that when you overlay sort of your opinion and your thoughts over the top of what people said. So I think that it would be critical to make sure that the raw form of those are accessible, first and foremost, just because people should have access to that. And then secondly, I think if we're going to have an executive summary, it really should be focused on how we have used that information and what impact that had on the process. So Rosa, if we did those two pieces, do you think is that kind of what you're driving at?
Well, yeah, I agree. I agree.
Rosa, I'm with you, and I think the results of the survey are very important. I don't want anything to get lost or left behind and this just end up in a stack of papers. I think, I think these sound like a couple good solutions to continuing the info and carrying it on. And because I also think the next police chief will want to see these, and this will be valuable info for that person as well to make some changes that may need to be made.
Okay, so as far as points of order and how we can structure this, because we were approving minutes. So the first thing, there were a few changes to the minutes that were suggested and that were recommended, I guess. So we should probably take that up as a point of order. And I believe that was to include the survey statistical results in those so that people would have access to how those things were, all of them, not just the ones that we discussed, and then also the raw numbers that came out of those. So to that, I think that in order to change those minutes, we should have a vote. So do I have a motion to modify the minutes? And with that, and I apologize, I don't have them right in front of me, that section. Is that from the 16th, the 23rd?
You said page 8?
23rd, it's
From
from.
the 23rd. So do we have a motion to modify and add the survey results, statistical results, to the minutes from June 23rd?
I'll so move.
And a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor of modifying the minutes based on that motion? Raise your hand and say aye.
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 Very good, and it carries. Then, and so Rosa, where I'm not washing over that last piece that you brought up, we'll deal with that in a second, but I just wanted to make sure that we're covering all our bases here. So based on that change, then we still have the minutes from the 16th that we should approve. So all in favor of, oh, sorry, do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Second.
And a second?
Second.
Very good. All in favor of approving the June 16 minutes? Raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Very good. So both of the minutes are approved. And then as a last item, I guess, Rosa brought up the sort of somehow consolidating thought, I guess, from the comments, right? And then putting that into some sort of report. And I think what we had discussed as a group here is to make sure that which we've already done, which is to make sure that the results are available, the comments in particular, to anybody upon request. But then come up with an executive summary of those focused on specifically how the commission is using those to alter the process. So in other words, what impact those community results from the surveys are actually having on the process. So I guess to that point, should we set an agenda item perhaps for the next meeting so that we can actually formally go through this, come up with the executive summary, and then go through the process of approving that? So I think that that's probably how we should handle that. Is that all right with you, Rosa?
Well, that's one way, yeah, sure.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know what the agenda items are for next meeting, and that's coming up in a few weeks, right?
Yes.
Or next week.
2 weeks from
Okay.
now.
We have
seven-
one the 21st, I believe, right?
The 23rd, okay. So are you suggesting we dedicate the entire meeting to do that?
No, I'm suggesting that on the July 21st meeting, we have an agenda item to sort of come up with what that executive summary is. So in other words, yep, at that meeting.
If you think we can do it at that meeting, I don't see why not.
Well, or the survey closes on the 21st, so maybe we should push it to the meeting after that, so one of our August meetings. It doesn't mean that we stop our process. We're still going to be using it. It's almost at the end of the process, we summarize what we've done.
I'm just
Okay.
thinking this whole thing through, actually. So the point of much of this is really to show how we use those results
Yeah.
as a part of the process. And so to your point, Rosa, this is sort of demonstrating that, right? And then also how people could use that moving forward. So there's probably not a reason to interject it right now, and we have a lot of other business to take care of. So there's a standard meeting in August, third week of August, and perhaps we should take it up at that one.
Sounds good.
And Jeff, just one note for the record, we have used, and I suspect intend to continue to use the survey results and the comments, and we've got the latest comments that have come in since our last meeting, so to the extent there are people out there in the public with the survey, please do fill it out, and we will look at it and take it into consideration.
Absolutely. Those are getting added to all the comments and the actual statistics, and the forms that are being filled out are getting added for each meeting, and we're getting those results. So continue to fill it out, and we'll continue to take all of that into account. All right. So that, yep, you have something? No? Okay. So that takes care of approval of the minutes. Public appearances for non-agenda items. No public appearances today? All right, very good. Next item is report from Human Resources.
Right, so I was going to bring up the survey again. So I wanted to let you know just how many more paper surveys and online submissions we've received. We received a total of 19 paper surveys. So we have definitely had and we received more electronic surveys as well. So as of the last meeting, we had about 268 survey responses in total. That includes paper and electronic. And as of right now, we have 299. So we've definitely grown with our responses. We still only have 2 Spanish responses and 0 back in Hmong. So, we're definitely still accepting those survey responses, and we'll get those results to you on a weekly basis. As you kind of look over the trends here, they really, they're just about the same. So for example, core values, those top two are still accountability and respect. The personal characteristics, there's a new one, problem solving and analytical thinking. So that was a new important personal characteristic. Otherwise, diversity, professionalism, collaboration, and integrity were the top ones that they would like to see in a new police chief. And then if you look at the leadership qualities, that is still the same, with the two most popular being communication and community engagement. So that's just a quick little highlight of the survey responses we have received to date. So we're definitely getting more and more. We hope to have more at our next meeting too.
Sir, I would just like to comment that probably some Hmong and some Spanish respond.
But yep, quite possibly, exactly, yep.
One thing I noticed is that the number of responses, or the percentage of responses of Fitchburg residents went down fairly significantly. And I'm wondering if, in the next reiteration of this, when we get the survey closed, if you could give the raw numbers in terms of how many Fitchburg residents versus non-residents. And it looks like a lot of these that have come in are not residents of Fitchburg, which is fine, and it's valuable. I certainly plan to comment on City of Madison and other police operations, so it's valuable, but I think it's just helpful to watch that trend as well.
Absolutely. I can bring raw numbers to one of our next meetings. Yep. And that is all I have for the survey.
Okay. Do you want to take the next one?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the questions we had for the PFC is trying to get more police department employee participation. Jeff and I were visiting a local coffee shop, and we happened to see a few of our officers out there having coffee, and they were sharing some feedback in terms of what they would like to see in a new chief and the department. And we learned a lot of things in an informal discussion over coffee, and they would love to hear from PFC members. And anyone that is willing to listen to hear what they really want. So we had sent an email asking for feedback on the police chief process. I got one email back from a police department employee, but they even said, email is not the way we want to communicate. We want to hear from you in an informal setting. Over coffee is perfect. So if anyone is interested, I would love to, just hop in one random morning, actually a few mornings. They're there almost every morning before their shift. So if you're interested, they're at Oasis, for example, before their shift. That's really early in the morning, but there's all different shifts and people working. Ideally, what we could do is send out an email to the different employees and find out what their shifts are and just see, hey, would you like to meet a few officers at a time in an informal setting? They talked about second shift, third shift, first shift, all the different work schedules. So just kind of putting that out there. They were really happy to meet Jeff, and they know me, so I would love to see if that's something you'd like to do, and then we can always report back on what we've learned and how to move forward.
Yeah, I guess I would just add to that, the conversation that I had was really a request for informal contact. So not necessarily sort of a survey that we send to them and that's formally back, but much more of it's just sort of rank and file conversation about, not even so much them hearing from us, but really about us listening to what their concerns are as members of the Fitchburg Police Force. So I would welcome, people to just, if you can make it informal and just stop by and really just listen. It's not about necessarily, our process is relatively open. I mean, we have our schedule out there, and I think that the process itself and the survey and all that. But I think that would just be a time for us to listen to what individuals in the department think is valuable.
Where is the Oasis?
Oh, sure. That's a coffee or cafe shop just right across from the library. I'm terrible at giving directions. It's great. Yeah. What I can do is I can reach out and find out what times and locations, and then give the PFC a heads up that, hey, if you're interested, there'll be some officers at this place at this time, and then at this place, to give you a variety of times and days that might work for you.
And we'll have to be careful, it's not an open meeting, I assume, which probably means no more than two of us at a time, is that?
Exactly, yeah, so we don't want a quorum, so no more than, we don't want at least 3 members, so.
I would actually that is true, absolutely. I would just recommend individuals, meaning, I think this is an opportunity just to go and meet folks. And it would be best, I think, if people did do it as individuals, and took that feedback individually. And not sort of, because I think the idea is that it really is just outreach from them. And it, the least amount of people there probably, the better. And just keep it informal.
All right, well, I'll send you some dates and times, and, maybe if it works for your schedule, I'll definitely check it out and be at some of them, so.
One other thought, a lot of the comments, I think, were addressing issues that aren't within our purview as a police and fire commission, and I think the city council members and mayor would value and get a lot out of that kind of reception as well with individual police officers. So maybe just a recommendation for them also to hear from the individual officers and staff, as well as the PFC, I think would be valuable.
Okay. And then we'll move on then to the review of the timeline and upcoming events. So I'm going to share my screen again. And so we just want to, there's so many things that we're doing, so we just want to make sure we're on target and we know exactly where we're at. So we've got our agenda items for today. We'll be covering a lot of different material. And then the week of July 19th, that's going to be the interviews and panel presentations. But for the next PFC meeting, for all of you to attend, would be just the July 21st one. That's our regularly scheduled PFC meeting. So we'll have our report from the PD, report from fire. And then we'll have a summary from the mayor and I on how the interviews and committee panel presentations go, because on July 21st, that will be the interview day. So it's going to be a long day. So what I'd like to ask the commission to consider is starting at 6 p.m. instead of 5 p.m. on July 21st, because we're going to need all that time to finish the interview process and get feedback from the panels. So that way, when we start 6, then Mayor and I can give you a good summary of how it went. And then from there, we'll be going into closed session to figure out who will be the finalists, who you'd like to bring in for the early August dates. From there, we'll be going into, August 3rd or 4th. We're hoping to have a PFC interview, so that'll be in closed session. That's the time of our public reception, our city tour, and one-on-one with the mayor, one-on-one with our new administrator. So really then, August 18th, we'll reconvene for our regularly scheduled PFC meeting, and that's where PFC will actually approve the hire, and then we'll start that really comprehensive background for the selected candidate or candidates. And that's really the gist of what is left on the schedule. Any questions?
Any questions from the commission on the rest of the schedule? I would just say that if we're going to move the meeting time on July 21st, do we need to formally change that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and just make sure that everybody can make it, and most importantly, because that's going to be an important meeting that evening. So I would like to make a motion, I guess, and we can have this open for discussion, obviously. So on July 21st, to move the meeting from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m., we'll do the standard notice, so all that stuff will still be in line. Can everybody make that time, I guess, is the question. So is everybody okay with moving that to 6?
Yeah, I
I'm
can.
seeing heads shaking. Okay, very good, thank you. So I will make a motion to move the meeting on July 21st to 6 p.m. from 5 p.m., our standard time.
Second.
Very good. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, so moved. Thank you, Sarah.
Okay, now we've got the public reception details. So this is going to be coming up really fast. So we've already identified August 3rd, potentially as a date that would work in 6:30 p.m. So we've got a few things to kind of work through. One of them is the location. So I was able to get hold of numerous places, Boys and Girls Club, the Painters Union, Redeemer City Church, and Little John's Kitchen as potential venues to hold the public reception. I was going to look to see if I could tour those places on this Thursday at a time that works best for whether, one of you want to join me, and then the venue, the people that work there. So not exactly sure where we're going to hold it yet. We're not exactly sure how many people are going to come to the public reception. So wherever we choose, we want to just make sure that it's a good space, it's in the heart of the city, and that we're just, it's accessible. From there, we have to figure out who the moderator is going to be. So who would we like to have asking those questions? And then what questions are we going to ask? So sometimes what I've seen is that they'll do a call out where community members, public can just throw out ideas for questions for the public reception. So they can submit those ideas to the commission. We can have just a link online and then also, some paper format for people to give ideas of the commission of what questions to ask so that you at least have some assistance from the public. So that's another idea. Unless the commission wants to come up with the 4 or 3 or however many core questions and then just open it up to the public afterwards. And then lastly, I know, Rosa, you brought up the interpreter, making sure that we have, we can accommodate our Spanish-speaking population that do come, and we can certainly do that. I got a quote from the GEO group that actually helped us with the translation of our survey, and they can accommodate up to 100 Spanish-speaking participants, and this is simultaneously. So they're all in the same room as the English speaking. So we're not, necessarily putting English speaking in one room and Spanish in one room. They've done this before. I'm not exactly sure how smooth it works, and we have to work with Fact TV to make sure they can tape all of this. But we can have a phone call with the AV expert over there and find out exactly how that would work. But there is that possibility. So basically, each Spanish-speaking person that's there gets a headset, and then as the moderator is asking a question in English, then the person who's translating is asking the question in Spanish in a booth so that you can't necessarily hear them if you're in the reception area as a participant or as an attendee. And then the people with the headset can hear it in Spanish, and then they can also ask a question to the translator at the end for like Q&A, so then the translator then can ask that question for them to the moderator. So we can work out more of those details. I'm pretty sure that's about as smooth as it works, but one of you or all of you can be on we can probably just one of you, we can figure out and talk with the AV expert and just see how this would work, but that's definitely an option. And then the other things we need to finalize, I wanted to share with you a flyer that Ned and police have put together. He does a wonderful job with all of these, making our things look really nice. So we already have a potential flyer for the public reception. So basically it just states, City of Fitchburg invites you to a public reception to meet the finalists for the next police chief. This is where we can edit the location, the day if we need to. Committee members will have the opportunity to meet and ask questions of the finalists for the City of Fitchburg's next police chief in a moderated forum. Spanish translation will be available. We have a watch live on Fact TV. And then just a little blurb, the City of Fitchburg Police and Fire Commission began a process to select the city's next police chief in May of 2021. Community input and participation has been included throughout this process, and we look forward to your attendance at the reception. You can learn more about the process, including how to submit questions for this event here. So we can make edits to this, but this is something we could pass out in a paper format to make sure that everyone sees it.
Was Leopold not available as an option?
I didn't hear back from Leopold, so I did reach out to Leopold. Boys and Girls Club and Leopold were the first two I reached out to, but I didn't hear back yet from Leopold.
Yep, so if we don't, I think that you're going back to the same thing I was, which is kind of just taking these one at a time, and
Yep.
maybe so just hitting location first. So it's Boys and Girls Club. The places to visit potentially are Boys and Girls Club, Little John's, Redeemer Church, and the Painters Union, correct?
Exactly.
I know where Boys and Girls Club is. I don't know, so I know where one Redeemer's Church is, and there may be two. So there's one that is on Fish Hatch, correct?
I don't know the specific locations of all of these sites. I know they're all in Fitchburg, but I don't know. So that'll be one of the things when I go to the tour to see exactly where it is.
Okay. And Little John's is that the kitchen from Liliana's?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Exactly.
And so where is that one located? Do you know that one?
I might have a address.
That's the old
here.
furniture store.
Oh, it is?
Oh,
Okay.
A1 Furniture.
Yeah.
very good.
Was that?
Or no, not A1 Furniture.
Um,
I know what you're talking about. That.
I think
Ethan Allen? I don't know.
Is it AMS? Is it over by AMS? Is that the car stereo place over that way?
I'm fairly sure that's it.
Yeah.
But I guess in regards to that, so there would be, these four options are the ones that we have identified at this point. And you're asking for individuals to go and tour these places to make sure that they're what we.
Unless the
correct?
commission wants to just choose a place, we don't have to tour it. So if you've been in one of these places and you think this would be a good venue, you know, if we have, say, 150 people that come, or 200 people, or 50 people, you know, you just never know.
Right. I guess I would lean on commission members then. Do people have experience with these locations? And I don't
do
have
not.
experience.
I don't have any experience. Was there one maybe that was eager to host or eager to hold that?
They were all great.
Were they?
Yeah.
Okay.
All really excited to see
Be a
if
part
they
of
could
it.
They
do
all,
one.
easy access for people? Easy access?
That's where I'm not really sure either. So that's why that'll be one of the things to evaluate if we do a tour.
Well, I'll throw another one in the mix, and it's this council chambers. I think that's appropriate. It's where the city administrator was held. It's accessible. It's available. There's enough room. It worked for the city administrator role, and I think it's probably Fact TV friendly, and probably interpreter friendly as well, to the extent that the audio tech is available here in the city hall. And I just think we may be making this too complicated. The other places would be great, and I think based on my limited understanding, I think they're all probably great options, but it just strikes me that the council chambers is appropriate. And that's truly center, I think, of the city. I think, you know, all these other options, from what I understand, are on the north side of the city, which isn't necessarily central.
Is there a reason? I like that idea. Is there a reason why we would not want it here?
It's not, so bus line, like we're not directly on a bus line, you know, so people do have a tendency to, they don't come to city meetings, we're trying to come to the people, so rather than asking people to come to City Hall. Just looking at other ways to get more interaction with the public and have more participation.
You know, one of the things is, I think we had the city had a previous meeting at the Painters Union, is that correct, several years ago? Do we have any idea how the turnout was for that?
I don't have the exact number. I know that they did have a good turnout for, it was a listening session with Chief Brecklin when he first got the chief role, and it was at the Painters Union. It went pretty smoothly. They had a lot of good space for that.
Yeah, I think the previous conversations that we had was the chambers is that, you know, that can be a default essentially if we can't find something, if we didn't find something else that was attractive. So I tend to agree that, I mean, obviously this is friendly for a lot of different reasons. It's a city, it's the center of government in Fitchburg. It's obviously Fact TV friendly.
Yeah.
But I do think the Girls and Boys Club particularly probably has some pretty good facilities. It's relatively new and probably it's worth investigating. The other places I'm just not very familiar with. So it's worth taking a look at. Other thoughts? Rosa, yes?
My opinion is that we should have it in the community. Make it accessible to the people. Sure, it would be good if people could just come to the city county building. It's our city hall, city county building, city hall. But I think it's important that we make it more accessible, especially to the people that don't have transportation, like a lot of the Fitchburg residents in our neighborhoods probably do have, and it's easier for them to move around, so that's what I would support. I would love to have it at the school. I've gone to meetings there with the chief of police in prior meetings, so But any other place that is accessible to people would be fine with me.
I guess, are any commissioners available to go and look at additional spots on Thursday? And I guess, when were you thinking?
Wait, so anytime after 11, because Fact TV will be with to make sure that they're checking out the AV capabilities, so.
Yeah.
And I still have to get hold of actually scheduling it with the venue and making sure someone's available at that time to be able to show us around. So the goal would be after 11 on Thursday.
Are you talking tomorrow?
Nope, Thursday. Tomorrow's Wednesday.
Oh, I mean Thursday, this.
Are you back?
She's up.
Okay, I'm not in town, okay, sorry.
So I guess I would propose, and we can certainly, it's open for debate, but if you could, Fact TV is critical in this, right? Because obviously we need all the AV stuff set up, and it's going to be a determining factor, really, I guess, in whether the venue is acceptable or not. And there's other ones, obviously, too, like space, what the space looks like. So I guess I would propose that if any commissioners can make it, they should. It would be very important for Fact TV to be there if we're going to evaluate that. But you come back at the meeting on the 21st and give us an evaluation of the spaces, and based on that, we can make a determination.
Well, the only issue is that the reception's already August 3rd, so we're going to want to make a decision hopefully this week yet, so that we can finalize the flyer and then give people plenty of time to know that, hey, this is coming up, and get it on their calendar. So I
Is Monday
Excellent.
too late? If we go Monday, is that too late?
don't think so. Monday shouldn't be too late. It's just that you want to give as much time as possible.
Right?
Right. I could help on Monday, but
Yeah, I guess the thing that I'm questioning now is I don't know how we're going to make that determination. So if we don't have a meeting between now and the 22nd or 21st, how will the commission get together and say, yes, this is the appropriate location? When, yeah.
Is this something that we need to approve? Or, I mean, because I trust you and you as, you guys have done this before, your expertise is very necessary. So for us, if it's a space that you support and encourage and think would be a good fit, I would be okay
I
with
agree
that.
with you.
Yeah, if the commission's okay with that, we're more than happy to, between Fact TV and I, to make sure that it fits the needs.
Yep. And and just to be clear, though, the places in question are the places that you're going to try and get into and look at. One is the Council Chambers here, obviously. Boys and Girls Club, Little John's, Redeemer Church, and the Painters Union.
And then I'm going to try Leopold another time too, Rosa.
Or this-
Great,
yeah.
yep. Okay. Next up, you had brought up the moderator. Who should be the moderator? I know that the mayor had offered to be the moderator in that event, for that event. And he's obviously going to play a role in this process moving forward, as far as with the new chief. So we certainly could reach out to him as an option. Do other people have other suggestions or thoughts?
I missed who you said was, or volunteer to be?
The mayor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think the mayor makes sense. He did it for the city administrator position, and I thought did a great job.
I see a lot of head shaking. So,
Mayor sounds great to me.
very good. So him not being here, we certainly will reach out to him. So Sarah and I can do that. And if he can't for some reason on that date or if something comes up, we'll have to, make an adjustment. But I think that makes a lot of sense.
Perfect. And then the other thing to really work out is, do we want to put a call out to the public for questions that they'd like to ask the finalists at the public reception?
We'd have to do that soon.
Right, we'd have to do that as soon as we have our location and we start getting word out, we want to have that on the flyer, how to submit questions.
So And I guess the other piece is that if we're talking about structure of that event, and we are going to have a certain amount of questions that we want to propose that are being asked. And then there's an opportunity for the public and the people that are there to actually ask questions. That seems, to me anyways, to be sufficient. I guess the other thing that I'm concerned about is that I don't know what kind of, like, we would have to put this out, that question out there now. I don't know what kind of response we're going to get back in that short amount of time. So I'm open to it, but I just don't know how effective that's going to be.
If people can't submit questions ahead of time, would you be open to, if they're watching from home, that they have a way to submit those questions to someone, like the moderator? So they're going to get more questions than they have time for, is what it comes down to. So making sure people know that, hey, we're not going to be able to get to everyone's question, but we will ask, X many questions. But for those that are watching remotely, if there's a way for them to submit questions the night of during the Q&A, so we take a few from the audience that are there, and then we take a couple from those watching virtually. It might be a nice idea.
And I guess, how did that work with the city administrator?
We didn't do where we asked for questions virtually. We just opened it up after we asked the 4 core questions of each of the candidates, and then the audience asked questions.
So I love the participation component of having those virtual questions. I just don't know if anyways, I just don't know exactly how the moderator is going to manage that and have that be effective. So that's one concern that I would have. And the other one is, if people want to ask questions, we're going to advertise this, and I would really like them to come and try and make the opportunity or take the opportunity to actually ask the questions. I guess that's just my opinion. Other commission members?
I like the idea of offering the option of questions. I don't know if, I'm not 100% sold on at the meeting, having people do it via email or live. I think if they can submit their questions, I think it's as simple as we put it out there. You can only put it out for a certain period, and then you have to close those questions towards the end. And are they anonymous? Do you read them as, this is from?
No, they're anonymous.
They're all anonymous, okay. Try and submit, and maybe we just put a number on it. We can take 5 questions from those here. We can take 5 questions from what we submit. I don't know how we'd go about reviewing all those questions, but I think that's something to offer. I don't think it would hurt anything to offer it and see what we got, even if it's only 5. I mean, we can't I don't know how many questions we'll be asking that night, but I think it's worth offering.
Yeah, the way it worked for administrators, we had 4 finalists up there, and we had 4 standard questions that we asked each one of them, and we started with a different candidate each time. They knew the questions ahead of time, and we told them they only had 3 minutes, I believe, to answer the question. So that we had some type of time limit on there because we didn't want to run out of time. We wanted people to be able to ask ad hoc questions at the very end. So that worked out really good. So it's like the commission, for example, coming up with a few core questions based on how many finalists you have, and then just opening it up to the public that are there, and opening it up to if you receive questions through an online submission or paper submission, however you want to do it.
Well, I think I agree with Sheena that we probably should open it up for some virtual questions. I mean, this is the day and age of virtual living. And I'd be happy to volunteer to help what Jerry was referring to about the logistics of that night. Do we have to move the microphone around to people, or is it going to be at a table, or is someone going to be monitoring the virtual questions? I'd help out with that logistic stuff. Maybe it's appropriate for a commissioner to do that.
I also agree that the more access that we can give the community, I think the better. I'm thinking of disabled people or some elderly people that can't make it, or people that don't have transportation. Anything we can do to make this more accessible, I think we're not going to lose anything, on the contrary. So as far as the logistics, that's not my specialty, so I would leave that up to Sarah, and I'm sure she knows how to handle that and organize that.
And I guess that's my single concern. I agree that we do live in that age, and I think we should open it up as much as possible. I just don't know logistically how that would be handled and whether that's manageable. So like the questions coming in, somebody would need to vet those and then somebody, or,
Not even, you don't have to do it as the public reception is going on. Like, we could, when we put this flyer out regarding the public reception, we can actually put a link on our website, our PFC page, where people can submit just a question that they think are multiple questions, and then we could close that prior, like you had said, Sheena, prior to the actual public reception date, so that we can go through those and then be able to ask some of those questions. So it gives us time to go through them. If we do it in a live setting, it does make it hard, because then we're reading on the fly and trying to figure out, is this question similar to one we already asked? And yeah.
Who's going to determine if a question is appropriate or not?
That would be the commission.
right?
Okay, Tom, that's you.
Well, I think there's value in the questions not being given to the candidates ahead of time for the administrator role, and having them surprise, essentially, and respond off the cuff. So I think there's some value in not sharing the questions that we do get from the community, that we do read with the applicants. And then I do think there's an element of openness if people at the event can ask questions live as well, if there are people who are interested. So maybe we could do a mix and match of both.
Yeah, and I guess just to make sure I'm clear on this, and I hope, just make sure everybody is, all questions are going to be not given to the candidates first, right? So,
Correct,
yeah,
right.
so all of them, so the ones that we generate and any other machination that we come up with here in regards to whether that would be ad hoc and people asking that night, or we put a link out there like you guys were suggesting, all of them would be.
For administrator, we did give them at least the 4 questions we were going to ask ahead of time, and we told them we didn't tell them they would only have 3 minutes is the thing. We didn't make that determination till later, realizing that some people would probably take longer than the others. But it did help. I think it probably made them feel more comfortable, because they kind of knew they could be prepared to answer some of those questions. And then we just opened it up to any questions. And so then you could see how they answered things on the fly too. So you could see them in a more polished role, where you could see who actually practiced and was ready to answer that question. And then when we asked just the general ones they had no idea we were going to ask, you could see how they reacted under, quick pressure, right?
Okay,
It was a good combination.
yep. And I like the idea of having all 3 types, then sort of the standard questions we provide, the questions that we solicit from the public essentially, and that we gather up, and then we say we're going to ask 2 or 3 of those, and then definitely having it open for 2 or 3 questions.
Yep.
What does the commission think? Does this seem like a good path forward? Yeah.
Okay.
So as far as visibility and getting the request for those questions out there, we could have it, like you had said, we'd have it on the flyer.
Yep.
We would put a link on our website as well
Right.
to that flyer or to that question set where they could actually type that in and submit it.
Exactly. And then we would, share it with the Star. We'd go the same outlets we use for the survey. We would do the same for getting the word out that, hey, we're looking for questions, and we have this public reception coming up. It would be a dual kind of marketing effort, so to speak. We're looking for questions, and also come to the public reception.
And when would the commission then assess those?
Right. So we might want to close that. If looking back at our schedule, we've got a meeting July 21st, but then we don't have a meeting before August 3rd. So we may want to have a quick meeting just to firm up any last-minute public reception details, such as the actual questions that we intend to ask.
I think that would probably be best if we actually had a special meeting and addressed those questions at that time. It would give us, you could get those to us in advance, we could go through them, come up with our finalized ones, then also the ones from the public.
Right, and there's a week in between there, so the week of July 26th, if we could just find a time for the PFC to reconvene, to just firm up any last-minute public reception details, including the questions.
It's probably a good idea anyways.
Yeah.
And that was the week of July 26th,
Yep.
correct?
I'm open to anything.
And what does Fact TV's schedule look like that week? That's always gonna be a question.
Okay. If we're in the Genie Ceiling Room, would that, and we're starting to do in-person meetings now back in there, will that make a difference if there's other meetings in here, or should we still stay away from the Tuesday, Wednesday?
Tuesday, I'm not entirely sure. I think Jaren just gave them the green light to
Okay.
go back into the ceiling room, so.
Okay. Well, what about Monday, July 26th? Does that work for everybody? Mondays are usually pretty good days.
At our standard 5 o'clock time.
Yep. Okay.
That Monday would work for me. Other commissioners?
Works for me.
Okay. Thanks, Chad.
And the two primary agenda items on there would be to review, to finalize our questions, review the public questions, and then make decisions on those, and then any other items that we need to address in regards to public
Exactly.
perception.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. And
So
that,
Monday,
oh.
26th?
Yes, July 26th at 5 PM.
I have one question.
Yep.
With regards to the questions we get via email, how are we deciding, because when I heard that we're deciding, well, these are questions that come from the public, but we probably could get none, we could get 5, 10, whatever. How are we deciding which ones are gonna be asked?
that's a good question. I mean, really, it's going to be making sure they don't, they align with our survey results, for example. So, I mean, making sure we're choosing the right types of questions, and we're not asking repetitive questions. So we'll have to look to see which ones the commission wants to ask, and then look at the public ones and make sure they're different from each other. So it's going to be a matter of, trial and error. We'll figure them out. There's not a real science to it, but we'll just be able to loop them back to the survey results.
I just don't want to give the impression that we are controlling what the public wants to ask of the chief.
The only issue is, ideally, it would be great if we could ask every question that came through, but if we get, 25 questions, we're not going to have all night, and we want to be able to open at the very end, the public reception, for people to just walk on up to the finalists and have an informal conversation with them, shake their hand, ask them, more, maybe more personal questions, who knows? So, we have to control the number of questions somehow.
Right?
Yeah, and I guess I would just say that we would use the surveys as a guide. So what the themes that have come out in the surveys, but then also look at, and so take that in totality. So we have questions that we need to generate, and then we want to ask if those are covered in what the public had sent in and responded with. We want to make sure that as much as possible we're adding to those, and just sort of catching as wide a breadth of what the public had requested as far as comments. So I do think it's a little bit of art and a little less science.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
That's all for public reception. Any questions or concerns about it so far?
The last item that you had discussed was interpreter. And
Yes.
I think that was just going to, I think that part of the assessment is going to be, is a venue where we can have one.
Exactly.
And I think that it would be beneficial, I think we had talked about the last meeting, if we didn't have to separate people out, and it sounds like you have a bit of a solution for that.
Yeah, so we won't have to separate people out, which is nice. Everyone will be in the same room. The GEO group is the one that, originally translated our survey. I just spoke about this a little bit ago, but the AV expert will talk with, I'll have to talk with that person, and Fact TV, just to make sure that this will work out. There's a cost associated, so I have to get it approved by our finance director as well, because we don't really have PFC doesn't have a budget. HR has a budget for recruitment, so it'll probably come out of the HR budget, which is fine. But yeah, the good news is that we can have an interpreter there, and that's our goal. So, and that everyone will be in the same room.
Okay. And then the last item that was actually a part of the agenda was outreach. So that is the flyer that is going out, and then you're going to reach out to the same venues essentially that we did for the survey.
Exactly. So, we'll share it with council members, we'll share it with neighborhood associations, Star, social media, every place that we've been pushing, paper, even we can make paper copies and take it out to the neighborhoods. Our navigator, Healthy Neighborhoods Navigator can take them out. So, yep, we'll do the same push that we have with surveys with the public reception flyer.
Okay. And that will also go to the city council as well, right?
Yes.
And I guess I would just encourage everybody on the commission to talk to every neighbor you have, every person you come across, and really just sort of push for the event. As soon as that flyer gets released and it gets put out, we can link them to that and just have the conversation with everybody you know, including email council members and everybody that we can get there.
You've mentioned the Healthy Neighborhoods Navigator a couple times. What is that, and
Yeah.
where do they go, and what do they do?
Yeah, so our Healthy Neighborhoods Navigator interacts with neighborhoods in Fitchburg. So we have one navigator right now. We have a recruitment going on for another navigator. But their sole purpose is outreach with the neighborhood. They do everything they work primarily in the planning department. So, when they were working on their comp plan, they were getting surveys out. They're getting input from the community. They're often going to outreach events. So I couldn't tell you exactly which neighborhoods, but they do have to be a Fitchburg resident to be a navigator. And the whole goal is to have some type of conduit between the public and government, right? So trying to get more participation and, with the public and government, basically.
Are they full-time staff?
No, they're limited term employees, so they are very part-time hours. We receive a fund, so they're grant funded. But yeah, they're not full-time employees.
And you think it is specific to parts of the city, not the entire city?
I think that their goal is to serve the entire city, but they're primarily, there's certain neighborhoods that they work with more than others, perhaps. I couldn't tell you for sure. Wade is our expert in
Sure.
Healthy Neighborhood. He leads that initiative, but it's a great program.
Okay.
Okay. Any other items on public reception? And I don't think that we have any formal approvals that need to happen coming out of that, so. Next up is closed session. So would somebody please read the verbiage that takes us into closed session? Volunteers? Thank you.
I'll move that the commission enter into closed session for the purpose of considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, more specifically to review the application scores and qualifications of the candidates, to determine who will be invited to interviews, to identify specific interview questions to ask, and to determine the specific community panel presentation topic and scoring criteria to be used for a competitive recruitment process.
And is there a second on the motion to go to closed session?
Second.
All in favor of moving to closed session, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye?
Aye. And Rosa is away from her microphone, but I think actually we can move to closed session because we had 3. All right. Okay, we're come out of closed session, and we have one action item coming out of closed session. And that is to create we've created a list of 9 candidates that are going to be a part of the panel interview and the community interviews on July 21st. So that's a motion to accept that list. Do I hear a second?
I second.
Thank you. All in favor of confirming that list of 9 candidates, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And so moved. So that takes care of our business coming out of closed session. Any announcements? And I don't hear any. So we move to adjourn. So do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
And a second?
I'll second.
And all in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Giannis is gonna play, he's gonna start.